Good day, Crime Talk aficionados. We have a great show for you today. First, some new developments emerge in the search for the missing California girl, Melodee Buzzard. Bryan Kohberger has to pay restitution. Mangioni's defense team says his mother never said that. Man sentenced to 75 years for murder and arson in a little spousal burning. An Idaho builder goes full demolition derby on his dream home. Parents of the year contestants, that's right, some severe child neglect where a teenager weighed about 35 pounds. We have this day in legal history, our quote, and our dumb criminal of the day. Let's talk about it.
All right, lawyer.
Good day, everyone. My name is Scott Reich, and this is Crime Talk, the most fact-driven, unbiased, true crime channel in the entire world. That's right. We bring it all to you with the facts, straightforward, and, maybe a little bit of sarcasm every now and then for sure. But we bring it to you the way it is. And I'll give you my analysis of it just the way it is after 30 years of, doing criminal defense. So before we get to the docket, let me remind you, go to crimetalksearch.com where you can sign up for that background subscription service. All right? Get a report, everything you want to know about somebody, stuff you thought you'd never learn about them. Maybe it comes back with nothing, but go to crimetalksearch.com. Listen, if you're dating somebody, it is dating malpractice not to do a background search on the individual that's coming into your life. Next, let me remind you to go hit the link below. Go check out the merch. The holidays are coming. All right? Listen, you want to have a great Christmas? You need to take care of it yourself. Your spouse may not want it, may not know where to go when you say, hey, I want a keychain from Scott Reich from Crime Talk, or I want one of those t-shirts that Scott has. I want to get them. My spouse is busy. They're not going to know what to do, where to go. You need to take matters into your own hands. Just like, when the cops approach you and you're not sure, lawyer, you take matters into your own hands. Be smart, do it yourself. Great. Order now. We'll get it out to you. Make sure it's there for Christmas. Okay? All right. Let's go ahead and get to the docket today. So let's open the record for Friday, November 14th, 2025. So new developments in the case of Melodee Buzzard. Now, police investigating the disappearance of 9-year-old Melodee Buzzard from California have uncovered some additional details, including some photographic evidence of the rental vehicle operated by her mother, Ashlee Buzzard, during the period surrounding the child's vanishing. Now, these revelations come amid ongoing efforts to locate the girl who was last confirmed sighted on October 9th near the Colorado-Utah border. Well, Ashlee Buzzard, Melodee's mother, appeared in court on Wednesday on an unrelated charge of false imprisonment. She was subsequently released on the condition that she wear an electronic ankle monitor. Now, the complainant in that case, Tyler S. Brewer, who described himself as an acquaintance of Ashlee, alleged that she disclosed her daughter's whereabouts during their interactions. Now, according to Brewer, Ashlee stated that Melodee had been dropped off in Utah and entrusted to the care of an unspecified individual. Investigative efforts indicate that Melodee was traveling cross-country with her mother at the time of her last known sighting, and surveillance footage captured the rental vehicle crossing the intersection near Colorado-Utah state line in October of this year, specifically October 9th. Now, further eyewitnesses' accounts have bolstered the timeline, and an employee at a gas station in Junction, Utah, located adjacent to the U.S. Highway 89, recalled an unusual interaction about 5 p.m. on that date. The worker described a woman, later identified as matching Ashlee's description, who entered the premises briefly while donning a curly blonde wig, and she simply opened the door, glanced inside, inquired about a litter of kittens visible outdoors, and then departed abruptly. Now, the attendant recounted, characterizing the exchange as somewhat peculiar, and the witness observed the woman entering a vehicle occupied by another female, estimated to be in her late 20s to mid-30s, with distinctive purple hair. Approximately 20 minutes southward along the route, Personnel at the Bear Valley Country Store reported a visit from the Federal Bureau of Investigation agents back on October 25th. The agents sought security recordings after triangulating a signal believed to originate from Ashlee's mobile device to a nearby cell tower at the junction of State Route 20 and US 89. However, the store's retention policy limits footage to 2 weeks, rendering the relevant material, gone. Now, a manager at a separate establishment along the presumed travel path informed investigators that Ashlee appeared to rely predominantly on cash transactions throughout the journey, thereby minimizing traceable electronic records. And Jason Jensen, he's a licensed private investigator based in Utah, addressed these developments during an appearance on Banfield on Thursday evening, and saying that any transfer or event involving Melodee likely transpired in close geographical proximity to these reported observations, potentially within a span of 2 hours and most. Jensen shared previously some unreleased images of the vehicle in question, a white 2024 Chevrolet Malibu rented by Ashlee. Now, law enforcement officials have documented irregularities with the vehicle's registration plates. On October 8th, one day into the road trip, the sedan displayed California license plate 9 Michael November Golf 101. Upon its return to the rental agency in California, the original plates had been reinstated. During their interim, the vehicle bore a New York license plate, Hotel Charlie Golf 9677. The precise timing of this alteration and whether additional plates were employed remain, unclear. Now, Melodee Buzzard is approximately 4 feet 6 inches tall and weighs roughly 60 pounds. She has brown curly hair and brown eyes, and members of the public with any pertinent information are encouraged to reach out to the Santa Barbara County Sheriff's Office through the detective line there at 805-681-4150. And there's an anonymous tip line as well, 805-681-4171, or you could send a submission to the portal that is set up with the sbsheriff.org/home/anonymous-tip/. The investigation continues with federal and local agencies collaborating to pursue all leads in this distressing matter. Updates will be provided when they become available. Next on the docket, Bryan Kohberger's gotta pay. In a recent ruling, the Idaho District Court judge has ruled that Bryan Kohberger, convicted in the 2022 stabbing deaths of the 4 University of Idaho students, to provide financial compensation exceeding $3,000 to the relatives of 2 victims. This decision persists despite objections from Kohberger's legal team, who contended that this ongoing incarceration under life sentences precludes any capacity for income generation. Now, the Judge Stephen Hippler, formalized 2 separate restitution orders. The first requires a payment of $1,420 to Steve and Christy Gonzalez, the parents of Kaylee, while the second stipulates $1,587 to Karen Laramie, the mother of Madison Mogan, and these amounts are designated exclusively to reimburse costs associated with urns acquired for the preservation of their daughter's remains following the tragic events. Now, Kohberger's defense had petitioned the court to waive these obligations, emphasizing his financial constraints amid a lifetime of imprisonment, just simply isn't possible. However, Judge Hippler dismissed that argument, citing documented contributions totaling, wait for it, $28,360.96 that Kohberger has already amassed through public donations during his time in custody. Furthermore, the judge highlighted prospective opportunities for payment via institutional labor initiatives within the correctional system. That's right. They could make license plates. They could do sewing. Who knows what is coming for Bryan Kohberger, but I'm sure it's going to be lucrative. Now, in evaluating Kohberger's circumstances, the court considered factors such as his relative young age, the nominal expenditures required for subsistence in a prison sentence, and the potential for continued donor support or earned wages. These elements, the ruling concluded, render the fulfillment of restitution obligations realistically attainable across an extended time frame. The mandate stems from the provisions in Kohberger's September 2025 plea agreement, which explicitly authorized the prosecution to pursue reimbursement of funeral-related expenses and costs under Idaho's crime victim compensation program. The contractual clause effectively circumvented the standard judicial scrutiny of a defendant's fiscal viability as outlined in the judge's formal order. Now, court records do indicate that Kohberger now faces some cumulative debt exceeding some $300,000, encompassing a range of penalties and liabilities. These comprise of criminal penalties and administrative charges of $251,000, a civil award to each affected family of $20,000, prior to restitution directives to the Crime Victim Compensation Fund of $31,964, and current restitution in the amount of $3,007.79. Now, during the prosecution, the prosecutors initially advocated coverage of family travel and lodging expenses associated with courtroom appearances, but subsequently relinquished this claim upon review of the plea agreement terms, which the court affirms did not extend to such ancillary costs. I knew that wasn't going to happen. But the funeral costs, yeah, you get that. Travel expenses, nope, not coming in. Anyway, so both restitution orders accrue at interest at the annual rate of 9.125% and must be remitted through the county court clerk there in Ada County. Obviously, Kohberger pled guilty, got his multiple life sentences, and, is never eligible for parole. Obviously, the judge's commitment to facilitating partial redress for the survivors in this case matters. Even a broader financial burden on the perpetrator's amount. Not like he's going to pay that much, but hey, if people were silly enough to send him $28,000 to have on his books, seems like it's only fair that he should have to pay some of that, if not a good chunk of it, to paying the court costs and victims' comp. Next, Luigi Mangioni's legal defense team says, hey, mom never said that. Sounds like a great question of fact for trial. So legal representatives for Luigi Mangioni, charged with the murder of the United Healthcare CEO Bryan Thompson, have filed a court document asserting that the Manhattan District Attorney's Office and the New York Police Department have failed to substantiate a purported remark attributable to Mangioni's mother during discussions with San Francisco police. The filing, disclosed on Tuesday, addresses comments made by the NYPD chief, or Detective Joseph Kenney, at a December 2024 press conference briefing. Kenney referenced information relayed by the FBI from the San Francisco police stemming from an inquiry initiated after a sergeant identified a potential match between Mangioni and the images disseminated by the NYPD. According to the filing, Kenney describes a dialogue in which Mangioni's mother reportedly neither confirms nor denied the individual's identity in the photographs, but indicated that such an act aligned with her son's possible behavior. Specifically, Kenney stated they have a conversation where she didn't indicate that it was her son in the photograph, but she said it might be something that she could see him doing. Mangioni's mother had submitted a missing persons report regarding her son on November 18th of 2024, and the defense attorneys argued in the pleading that no material in discovery corroborates Kenney's account of the mother's statement. Furthermore, existing discovery material suggests the statement was simply not made. Now, the attorneys for Mangioni emphasized that should this remark prove unfounded, the district attorney's office and the NYPD bear responsibility for rectifying the inaccurate and damaging assertion. The filing notes that the claim has appeared in multiple media outlets, including the novel Luigi, The Making and the Meaning by John H. Richardson, released on November 4th. Now, the defense has requested that the court deem the prosecution's certification of compliance concerning information related to Mangioni's mother as inadequate. Prosecutors are anticipated to submit a response in an upcoming document. For those who don't know, Mangioni, 27, graduate from fancy Ivy League institution, entered pleas of not guilty to both state and federal charges of first-degree murder in connection with the fatal shooting of Mr. Thompson outside the Midtown Manhattan Hotel during the United Healthcare's annual investors conference. Now, police arrested Mangioni in Altoona, Pennsylvania, following a 5-day manhunt. In the proceedings, prosecutors have indicated their intent to pursue the death penalty, and Mangioni's next appearance is in federal court on December 5th. So, ladies and gentlemen, I'm not sure if this statement ever took place. I assure you the defense has probably talked to mom and said, "Did you make this statement?" She probably said, "I don't recall." The sergeant who said that Mangioni's mom said this statement should have put it in a police report, or they should go prepare their police report now and say, "This is what I recall." Now, here's the big deal. There is none. An opinion of another witness that their son could have been the one that did it, or that fits what he was thinking, something along those lines. That's not coming in. That's inadmissible evidence. This is just to make a headline, a filing, so that it makes it to the press, and clearly it did, to say, aha, look, the prosecution is not being honest in what they have said. Now, we'll have to wait and see what the response will be. More than likely, a report will be generated, and it will fix everything, and then the prosecution can say, we've turned everything over. But the reality of it is that would be an inadmissible statement. Who cares what mom thinks as it relates to if that could be her son? She's not identifying him from the photo array. That would be admissible. But to speculate, well, it sounds like something my son would do, inadmissible. That's the job of the jury to decide. So don't get too spun up about it, ladies and gentlemen. That's why you come here, for the facts and the analysis to the law to see if it really matters. Next, an Arkansas man gets 75 years. You know, when you kill and burn people, 75 years sounds about right. So a North Little Rock man has received a 75-year prison sentence following his guilty plea to charges of first-degree murder and arson in the death of his wife, whose final moment were marked by severe burns inflicted during a domestic dispute. Please meet Bruce Lee Cockrell, 48. Appeared in the North Little Rock District Court on Thursday, where the judge imposed the consecutive terms, 45 years for murder and 30 years for arson. The case stems back to the July 8th, 2024 incident that claimed the life of Tanya Marie Ligon Cockrell after she sustained burns covering nearly her entire body. Court filings reveal a detail of a heated argument between the couple at their residence, escalating to violence, and then investigators determined that Cockrell retrieved a container of fuel typically used for lawn equipment from the kitchen and doused his wife with it while she was seated at the edge of their bed. Ligon Cockrell anticipated the act, reportedly protested, but the confrontation continued. Now, according to Cockrell's subsequent statement to police, his wife then ignited a cigarette, which triggered the flames that engulfed her. The old "it's all her fault" defense. Not really when you're the one that doused her, even if that was true. Anyway, she fled the home in agony, seeking help outside. Emergency personnel arrived to find Ligon Cockrell conscious but in critical condition. Her injuries described in medical reports as encompassing virtually all of her skin surface. Cockrell assisted responders in securing her to a transport board before she was rushed to the ambulance in Texarkana, Texas. Notably, Cockrell himself exhibited no signs of burns or physical harm, despite his initial assertion that the blaze originated while they were both asleep in bed. Spontaneous combustion defense. Now, in his first statement to deputies at the Hamilton County Sheriff's Office, Cockrell attributed the fire to substandard electrical modifications allegedly performed by the property's prior owner. Somebody else's fault. Container of the accelerant discovered in the kitchen prompted further scrutiny, and Cockrell explained its presence by claiming he had been repairing some gardening equipment indoors. Because isn't that where we all fix the gardening equipment? In the kitchen? Anyway, Ligon Cockrell's lucid disclosures to first responders and hospital staff contradicted her husband's narrative. And as she received urgent care in the emergency department, she repeatedly informed a charge nurse that her husband had physically assaulted her, striking her and berating her before applying the fuel and igniting it. He set me on fire, she declared multiple times, according to the nurse's affidavit, providing a harrowing account of the preceding verbal abuse concerning their finances, his joblessness, their children, and their past romantic entanglements. Police arrested Cockrell at the scene on suspicion of domestic battery. The following day, while detained, he offered a more detailed confession during the interrogation, and he recounted sharing a bottle of whiskey with his wife earlier in the evening, which developed into a dispute. Liggins Cockrell was later transferred to a specialized burn unit at the Arkansas Children's Hospital, where she succumbed to her injuries on July 9th. In a chilling remark at the close of his interview, Cockrell reportedly inquired of investigators, how did she endure for so long? The question underscores the gravity of her suffering, as you know, those burn injuries are typically proved to be fatal rapidly. Anyway, prosecutors pursued capital murder charges alongside arson, citing the premeditated nature of the accelerant use. And Cockrell's plea agreement averted a trial, sparing the court and family additional proceedings. The case obviously highlights, the perils of intimate partner violence, or as they say in the old days, domestic violence. Anyway, no prior criminal history for Cockrell was detailed in public filings, though the couple's relations strains had reportedly intensified amid some economic pressures. Now, the sheriff's office led the investigation with the support of the fire marshals, who ruled out, spontaneous combustion, electrical fires. Anyway, the tragedy, obviously goes to bigger issues of domestic violence and abuse. And, oh yes, our favorite, the dying declaration. That's what this is. Normally, right, when a victim is dead, nothing that they say comes in because they're not there to be subject to cross-examination, and it would be hearsay. But if you make a dying declaration, understanding that it's related to what just took place, the injuries, and you truly believe that you're going to die, those statements are admissible. And obviously, this individual believed that those statements were going to come from the grave and tell the truth, and why a 50-year-old man or 40-year-old man decides to take a big sentence knowing he will basically never get out. He was trying to avoid the death penalty. So remember, ladies and gentlemen, dying declaration. It's got to be about how the injury was caused, who did it, and a belief that you are going to die. Clearly, that's what this woman thought was taking place. I'm dying. I think I've mentioned this before. Had a DV case years and years ago, little fight. Wife starts walking down the street. Husband gets into a car. He starts getting a little closer to her, bumping her. Ultimately, she runs. She jumps over a fence. Driver then drives through the fence, pinning her against the house, literally knocks the house off the cement frame. And client then allegedly leaves, puts the car in park, walks away. Homeowners come out because it's late at night, find this woman pinned to their house, back the car up. Ultimately, the lady survives, but she thought she was dying. She's like, I'm dying. My husband did it. And probably one of the most cruel things that somebody's done to somebody, and they lived to tell about it. And he got, I think, 48 years on that. So 75, 45 for a amputated leg, 48 for an amputated leg, 75 for murder and arson. Yeah, I'd say that's in the ballpark, ladies and gentlemen. Next on the docket, an Idaho builder goes demolition derby. Go figure. So in a little bit of a twist that could make a Hollywood scriptwriter blush, a 29-year-old construction pro with a flair for the dramatic has turned a sleepy suburb into his personal action movie set. Police report that Fred Kudra, a man whose resume boasts heavy machinery but apparently skips the fine print on property lines, decided dawn was the perfect hour for some unauthorized home remodeling via an excavator. It all kicked off about 5:30 a.m. on Tuesday when nosy, or perhaps just caffeinated neighbors, dialed 911 in a chorus of confusion. This is what's going down. The sun's barely cracking an eyelid. And here's Kudra treating a pristine new build on West Elisa Avenue like it's, well, owed him money. The place, fresh on the market and waiting for its first lucky owners to unpack the IKEA flat packs, now reassembles a particularly vengeful game of Jenga played with a backhoe. Cops rolled up faster than a bad blind date, catching Kudra hightailing it to his getaway car. A quick traffic tango later, they had him in cuffs, charged him with misdemeanor DUI, because why not be impaired judgment when you're using the excavator first thing in the morning, plus felonies for burglary and gleefully trashing someone's investment. Now, Kudra, described by officers as a wandering wordsmith of the worksite, thinks transient tradesman with a tool belt has left investigators scratching their hats over why. Was it a grudge against the Gables, a blueprint betrayal, or just Tuesday's to-do list gone rogue? Motive remains as an elusive as a sober Uber at last call. Visuals from the scene, courtesy of the Post Falls PD photo dump, paint a Picasso of pandemonium. A once majestic McMansion reduced to a splintered symphony of 2x4's confetti, roofing, and some fluffy insulation tumbleweeds. It's the kind of wreckage that screams extreme makeover, regret edition. The probe plods on with detectives dangling the carrot of extra indictments if more dirty turns up. Got a tip, don't play cop, spill it like the pros, or drop an anonymous whisper. After all, in Post Falls, the only thing getting bulldozed next should be the bill for that rebuild. Stay tuned. This one's got sequel potential, I'm sure. Next, some parents of the year contenders with some extreme neglect. Police in Outagamie County have arrested 4 individuals in connection with the chronic neglect of a 14-year-old girl who was discovered in a severely malnourished state, weighing just 35 pounds. This case, described in court as involving conditions akin to the House of Horrors, has prompted multiple felony charges against the suspects. The girl's father, Walter Goodman, along with Savannah Lefevre, identified as Goodman's stepdaughter, and Kayla Stemler, Lefevre's partner, were taken into custody on November 10th. Each face 5 counts of chronic neglect of a child resulting in great bodily harm and emotional damage. And Melissa Goodman, Walter Goodman's wife and the girl's stepmother, were detained the following day on November 12th, and it is anticipated to be formally charged with similar offenses. Court records indicate that Melissa Goodman's 15-year-old son also resided in the house, and the investigation originated from the emergency call placed by Walter Goodman to 911 on August 25th. He reported that his daughter, who had autism, had become lethargic after abstaining from food for 4 to 5 days and appeared, comatose. Upon arrival at the family residence, the responding deputies initially estimated the teenage girl to be 6 to 8 years old due to her extreme physical deterioration. Medical evaluations at the hospital revealed a litany of critical health issues, including severe malnutrition, pancreatitis, acute hepatitis, respiratory failure, optic nerve neuropathy, pressure sores, and cardiac dysfunction. Records from the criminal complaint note that the girl had not received medical attention since September of 2020, when she was 9 years old, and had been homeschooled beginning in 2021. Further details from the complaint describe the teenage being confined to her bedroom for prolonged durations, under constant surveillance via a monitoring camera, and exhibiting signs of self-harm. During her hospitalization, she expressed enthusiasm for simple foods such as pancakes, M&Ms, tacos, and vegetables, while voicing concern that her father would disapprove of her consuming in such quantities. Law enforcement initiated a probe into this chronic neglect upon confirming the girl's dire condition with minimal body weight. The suspects appeared at the Outagamie County Court on November 11th, where Commissioner Bryan imposed cash bonds of $150,000 each for Walter Goodman and Savannah Lefevre, and a $100,000 bond for Kayla Stemler. Preliminary charges are scheduled for Walter on November 14th, Kayla November 19th, and Savannah Lefevre November 20th. In addressing the court, Figge characterized these allegations starkly. It's alleged that a minor child was, quite frankly, living in a house of horrors. The girl remains under medical care, and the case continues to unfold as police review additional evidence. Come on, ladies and gentlemen, you can do better than that. They're kids, man. Seriously, if you don't want your kids, go give them to somebody that actually does. But do it legally. Don't just give it to somebody. Don't sell them. Don't lock them up and put them in the basement and malnourish them. There's people that want kids that will care for them. Treat them, well, like their own, for God's sakes. That aren't going to harm them, aren't going to abuse them, aren't going to malnourish them. Give them to somebody that cares, that wants them. Next, this day in legal history, November 14th, 1832, the U.S. House of Representatives approves the Missouri Compromise, admitting Missouri as a slave state while prohibiting slavery in the Louisiana Territory north of the 36-degree latitude, balancing sectional tensions and establishing early precedent for congressional regulation of slavery under the Commerce Clause until it was invalidated by the Dred Scott decision. Next, November 14th, 1881, Charles Guiteau went on trial for the assassination of U.S. President James Garfield. The trial of Guiteau pointed to problems with 19th century law treatment of insanity. Guiteau's trials also is problematic in retrospect, as Garfield's death was immediately attributable not to Guiteau, but to Garfield's doctor, who before sterilization was well understood, repeatedly probed his wound with unwashed hands while searching for an embedded bullet. The old subsequent intervening cause. Yes, it is. Next on the docket, our quote of the day. In suits at common law, trial by jury in cases is essential to secure the liberty of the people as any one of the pre-existence rights of nature. James Madison, 1789. This statement underscores the foundational importance of jury trials in civil and criminal matters as a bulwark against potential abuses of power, reflecting enduring principles from the American jurisprudence. And finally, our dumb criminal of the day. In a story that could unfold only in the Sunshine State, a 43-year-old man turned a routine property trespass into some high-stakes games of vehicular hot potato, culminating in a half-naked standoff armed with, gardening supplies. Now, police say Joshua Molnix, fresh off an ill-fated shed heist, commandeered a construction worker's ride, nearly turning the owner into roadkill before seeking sanctuary in the most undignified hideout imaginable, a portable toilet. The escapade kicked off on October 27th when Molnix allegedly strolled into a Sanibel property and eyed a shed with larcenous intent. Spotting the intrusion, a sharp-eyed construction worker issued a firm evict yourself directive. Undeterred, or perhaps overly determined, Molnix slid into the worker's car and floored it, executing what deputies described as a near-miss vehicular salute that had the victim leaping for his life like a stunt double in a low-budget action flick. As Molnix barreled through a gate in the getaway chariot, he left behind an estimated $4,000 trail of splintered property damage, per the arrest affidavit. Not one to let damaged leg, a second witness dialed 911, flagging a disheveled figure matching Molnix's vibe, complete with telltale signs of substance-fueled flair as the probable culprit. Spotting his ill-gotten wheels parked at a neighboring lot, Molnix opted for the classic criminal camouflage, ducking into a porta potty for a plot armor upgrade. But when Lee County Sheriff's deputies rolled up, the suspect burst forth in a state of wardrobe malfunction, pants conspicuously absent, while waving two wooden stakes like a deranged vampire. He bolted on foot, only to meet his match in a taser electric embrace, courtesy of a quick-thinking officer. Molnix, now 43 and counting court dates, was promptly booked into the Lee County Jail on charges including aggravated assault with a deadly weapon, less murderous intent, grand theft auto, criminal mischief, and fleeing the scene of a crash. And in a nod of fiscal fortitude, he posted bail on November 4th. His next act, an arraignment on course scheduled for December 8th, where perhaps he'll arrive fully attired. Stakes optional. Anyway, local law enforcement remind us all, when life hands you a porta potty, it's probably time to reconsider your life choices. Stay tuned for updates. Florida, because if there's one thing we know, it's that weird never sleeps there. Thanks for watching, everybody. I hope you have a wonderful weekend. And remember, the Constitution matters.